solution. That is what we define. I don't know whether we went to that level. The step-by-step process of coming to a solution is what we call an algorithm. So when we talk about data structures and algorithm, then this class, basically, if we look at the topic, before we go to this, we are talking about data structures and algorithms. So this class therefore has two parts. There is the data structures part that we need to go through. That is the first, that is one part. And the second part is algorithms. So algorithms is part two. For the purpose of this class, I start with algorithms. Then I'll go to data. So I will not define what data structures is for now, but we'll go through that at the appropriate time. So step-by-step process of coming up with a solution is what we are talking about, algorithms. And we can ask many questions. For example, of course, when you talk about step-by-step, doesn't mean that this step-by-step must be, there must be a universal way, that this is the only way you can come up with it. The only thing that is universal is the solution. For example, and this problem will be using many areas. For example, coming up cooking ugali. You see, cooking ugali. So we will find that there are several processes that you have to go through. You have to maybe to put water in a pot or sufuria, whatever you want to call it. Put water in a pot. Then you heat this water. So let it to boil. Okay, boil that water. So you put there is water in a pot. Then you boil. Once it starts boiling, then start adding uga. Add uga now, what you call flour, for those who don't understand Swahili. Okay, then you continue stirring. You stir continuously. So when you continue stirring continuously, what happens? At one time it will thicken. It will thicken. Then what happens? Then you can let it settle, or let it heat a bit, or cook a bit, whatever you want to call it. If you are Mluya, you can say that uogeshe kwa wall. If you are a Kikuyu, ukikoroga mara mbili imeiva. So if you are Mluya, you can uogesha wall. So uogesha wall. When kama imeiva. So if it doesn't stick, it is ready. Then what happens? Then you can serve. Correct? So the final product is the ugali. So you can see you are stirring continuously. You continue stirring continuously, okay, until it hardens. So maybe the harden now, some would like it a bit soft, some would like a bit hard, depends with who is eating this food. So these are the processes. If you look at it, we are asking about the steps. If you have the same, for example, for uji, you know, we can use several methods for uji. The first level is where you put again this water in a pot, okay? Then after putting water in a pot, what do? You put maybe some little flour. You put some little flour. Then what do? You stir. You stir until it starts to boil, or simmer, whatever you want to call it. Let's call it boiling. Start boiling. So once it starts boiling, you can let it boil, maybe for 20 minutes or whatever, maybe 20 minutes. Then at this point, it is ready to serve. But still the same uji, you can also have the second option, whereby you put the uji. You can put uji. So sorry, this is step 2. So you can have water in the pot. Sorry. You can have water in the pot. Then when you have water in the pot, what do? You let it boil first. You let the water boil. Once it boils, then you mix flour, some little flour, with cold water. Yes. So once it mixes well, what do? Then pour. You can now pour into the boiling water. Then what do? Stir it. Then till it continues boiling. Maybe you can call it continue boiling. It will continue boiling. Then once it is boiling, then what do you do? So let it boil, maybe for again 10 minutes. Then what do you do? It is ready to serve. Now, ready to serve. So what we are simply saying is that look at the steps of preparing uji versus ugali. First of all, one of the things we will note in this could we please ensure you mute? Ensure that your mic is muted. When you don't mute, then I can kick you out of class, please, because we need to ensure that there is no noise. Now, look at this. I'm looking at two products here. One product called ugali and another product, or the solution. The solution. We are looking at what is the solution. What solution do we need? Then the solution we need is one guy the solution is ugali. The other guy, the solution is uji. If you look at this, why do I use these examples? Because the raw materials is the same. Water and uga. Both are the same. But depending on the steps, when you put quite an amount of flour, this unga, you will get the product here will be ugali. It will be ugali when you use this, when you ensure it hardens. You know, if it is hardening, the same product, water and uga will resort to ugali. But the same product, the same materials, that is flour and still the same water. If you put, depending on the amount of flour you put, then you see you can end up with uji. And what is determining here is the process. In this process, you are putting substantial amount of flour, this one, you're putting some little flour. The flour you're putting. But the question of putting water in pot and heating is the same. The materials we are using, the water, the uga, using the pot to boil, and using a stirring stick is the same. You are stirring. But the one thickens, it becomes uga. The other one thickens, the other one is light, it becomes uji. And still in uji, you can see that although the destination is the same, that this one you want to get uji, and the other one you also want to get uji. These both you are getting the same solution, uji. But what happens? The steps differ. Where do the steps differ? This one, the water is still cold, so you are adding flour when the water is still cold. But this one, you're waiting it for it to boil. Once it boils, what do? Now you have to add, again, you koroga, you mix the flour and cold water. You see, cold water, so that it doesn't form those crabs too early. So essentially what we are simply saying that if you look at this one, these are two steps of coming up with the same solution, And that's where you can say, for example, assume you are directing somebody, a visitor, from the gate to CIS building, or maybe to the Nyayo gate, from the gate A in KU. You know, we are simply saying the solution is a Nyayo gate. That is where you are directing someone to go to Nyayo gate. Maybe they want to go to amphitheater, or they want to go to BSSC. Then what happens? There are many directions. That is what this one is showing. The solution is the same. You want to go to amphitheater, or you want to go to BSSC. Okay, so what do you do now? You tell somebody, either they use the shopping center route, so they go through the shopping center route. Then they, after the transport department, they see the route to the right. Then they go up, or they can go past the graduation square. They go around past the CIS building. They take to the left, and they'll find themselves there. Or somebody could even be walking. So you can refer them to use either the Cassandra route. So they walk there past the Cassandra route. They go just below where the BSSC is, and then they turn right. You know, these are directions you are giving. The destination, what you are calling the solution, is the same. The destination, what you are calling the solution, is the same. But the process to get the solution differs depending on several issues. For example, one of the issues could be what you know. you know what you know. Maybe you are also not very conversant with the KU. Maybe you only know one Karuti, maybe there, where there graduation square. So that is the one you are going to really guide these people through. But if you have been there, you are veteran, then you are that year, fourth year, you know all these routes, then you can guide them to many routes. If it is walking, you can also guide them the myriad routes that they can use again to walk. So this is what they're talking about. Many methods of getting to a solution. That is what we are calling, that is what we are referring to as an algorithm. An algorithm, the step-by-step process of getting to the solution is very, very important. So in the same thing, when you are coming up with the algorithms, then you have to be very clear on what you really want to come up with. And we can look at some of the attributes of a good algorithm, the attributes of a quality algorithm. Okay, but maybe before we go to the attributes, we say, there's one thing we say, that why are we programming? For example, I have just referred to those students from KU who will be going to Estonia. They had the hackathon, they were given a problem. So they were supposed to get a solution. So they were given a problem. Each of the team, there were 8 teams, each team was given a problem, and then they were supposed to look for a solution. So how we call this one, anytime, even if some company call you, want you to program for us, they are telling you to program because they have a problem and they want you to get a solution for them. That is simply what you're talking about. So we need you to get us a solution. That is simply what they will be telling you, that please get us a solution. That is why they want you to go to program for them. Okay, they want you to get a solution. So we call this one, when you're trying to get a solution, we call it problem solving. So you're solving a problem. So we'll talk about problem solving steps. What are the steps when you're solving a problem? Because even tomorrow when you go to a company and you're working, then you'll be getting a problem, and then they want you to solve that problem. There are several steps. First of all, you have to identify the problem. So you have the problem identification. So you have to identify, because you cannot solve what you don't identify. You cannot solve what you don't identify. You must first of all pinpoint, this is the problem. Then you go to solve the problem. Okay. For example, you might go to an organization that maybe the processes are slow. Then you're coming up with a solution to solve that. Today, most of the processes in organizations are computerized. So you might not go, unlike during my time that you're developing a new system. Today, you don't go to develop a new system. Today, what you do is that you go to do what? To re-engineer what is existing, to re-engineer. So what happens? Maybe the system, there are some things it's not doing properly. The outputs are not good. Maybe they don't look very smart. They don't look very nice. They are not very well represented. Or sometimes there are some errors depending on what you do. Maybe the system hangs. Maybe sometimes you put some data and then you find it giving you what you did not wish it to produce. So that is a problem. So once you know this is the problem I want to do, then what do? You analyze. To analyze the problem, here you are trying to understand the problem. You want to understand the problem. You want to understand the problem. Okay? So you understand the problem. What is the problem? This is the problem. Have you now got, so first of all, you know the problem, understand what has been happening and how maybe look for the solution. The next one is you design the solution. You plan for, we'll be talking about this, each of the steps. Then after you plan for the solution, then what do? Then you develop the solution. For example, you are IT students, then you program. Finally, you do what? You, of course, you test and install. You test and install. These are problem solving steps. We put as 5. For the computer science students, you'll be doing a unit known as system analysis and design. You will rename kidogo to a bit different. For example, the first step, you might talk about it as feasibility study. Feasibility study. For now, we're just talking about problem, because we are saying that in computerization, whatever you'll be doing, you'll be solving a problem. Then I think it is better we really call it problem solving steps. The problem solving steps, they're telling us these are the steps you go through when you want to come up with a solution. So that is what they're talking about. So problem solving steps, that is what we have just called it. So just a simple problem solving steps. That's what you're doing. Then identify the problem. Let me use a different explanation. Again, I think we can still go to, let's talk about a hospital. You go to hospital, you sit there in a hospital, you will find the doctor asking you, shida ni nini? Because they don't know what your problem is. They don't know. But you have gone there to get the solution. So the first thing they'll ask you, shida ni nini? Nini imekuleta hapa? That's what they will ask. Nini imekuleta hapa? Then you say, oh, I've been having a headache. Then what happened? Then, or maybe a stomachache. Then when you say I have a stomachache, then what happened? They'll be asking now other questions. Imekuwa for how long? Then you say maybe 1 week, 2 weeks, or this number of days. Okay. How serious is it? Ni wapi kunauma? Ni hapa. Then maybe you find them touching to see where exactly you're talking about. Then imeuma for how many days? Anakuambia umekula nini? Have you eaten maybe some food jana, juzi, nini umekula? They ask you that. Okay, so they try to understand. When they ask you, because they are not the ones who are sick, it is you who is sick. First of all, to understand what is the problem. To analyze, when they ask you those questions, inaumia wapi, for how many days, umekula dini, what did you eat? That is analyzing. They are trying to get the details. So that now after explaining that, they can design a solution. They are trying to design a solution. So they might design, this fellow, I'm suspecting in the 2 weeks the lecturers on strike, kazi yake alikuwa anaenda kupanulia wanaume miguu. So what happened? Maybe the fellow is already expectant and doesn't know. So then what will happen is, sasa akijua wewe shida yako is not even what you're talking about. Sio tumbo inauma, kumbe you're already developing another system in your body. So what happens? The fellow would just tell you, go to the lab, write a prescription. This is not a solution, no. They are trying to design the solution. Go to the lab, then and you write the test that need to be done. Angalia nini, then you go to the lab. So then develop a solution. Now you have, because you have done that, that is the process of developing the solution. So the solution comes and then install and use. So what do you call it? If this install now for that place, install is now give the users to start using, give the feedback. Wewe inaonekana ulirukaruka sana na huko, and then what is happening is that sio tumbo inauma, wewe sasa anza kuja clinic. You are now a mother. So I hope none of you did that. I hope hakuna msichana tulifanya hivyo, and I hope there are no boys who went around using your youth energy to run your body. Salute hapo. So I hope you are good boys and girls during that when you are on strike. I hope you are in lab. At least I had told you in our first class that you need to learn C++ on yourself. I hope those 2 months you are learning C++, but not kwenda kufanya tu vitu ingine. That is an example I'm giving. Now, we can also use another example. We go to, you have gone to what? For example, now it is 1 p.m. It's maybe after this class, you will go to a restaurant, either KM or even KU or whatever. Assume you start in a standard, not the ones that you go to eat, the mess where you go just pick a plate and you queue. But in other places where you are served, for example, by a waiter, what happened? You will go and sit in that restaurant, unaketi. So once you sit, the person, of course, you are showing you have a problem because umekuja hapa sababu ya shida, so but the person now, because you have already shown this is a restaurant, the purpose of restaurant ni kumaliza shida za tumbo. Now sio ile tulikuwa nasema ya ja, let us call it shida ya ja. So what happens? The person already says this fellow already knows wewe unajua shida yako ni ja. So they'll come there now do analysis. So they come to you and ask you, how do we help you? Ama utakula nini? you know, utakula nini? Then you say mimi nataka for example nataka nyama na ugali. You see, the next question they might ask, nyama, is it choma, is it boiled? And maybe I hope they will not go to the extent of that fellow who is a comedian. We see him asking from 5-star hotel and asking very many questions. Okay, unataka migi ya madogo, ugali brown, ama unataka ugali ya white, wipi ama ya nini, until you get tired. Of course, we'll expect they'll ask you, unataka ugali, unataka nyama mainly, unataka boil ama unataka nini. So they'll ask you those questions. Then you say maybe unataka choma or kuku choma, you know. And then they will. Then if the food is not there, the design here now, if the food is not there, then you prepare how to do it. You prepare. How do we go preparing the ugali? Then, of course, some of the things are already known. We know how to prepare ugali. The design I was talking about, that's the design. It's planning. If you write that, the how to prepare ugali, that is a design of the solution. Then what is the solution? Now develop the solution. If the ugali, some of the hotels, they cook by order. So they now go cook that ugali. Once the ugali is there, of course, they will test. Kama mulia diya kwa kitchen na Mjaluo anaogesha kwa wall kama itaanguka. Kama ni Kikuyu anasema umekoroka kwanza, kama ni ile ya Kafagara ugali already ilikuwa imepikwa ikiwa kwa mashini huko. And then what happens? Then of course now that they have tested, then install. What is install and use? Bring the ugali to you and the nyama to you and continue eating. So what you're simply saying is that even in normal life we do this. We identify where for you to go to a restaurant, you are showing a problem. That's why the waiter will not ask you shida yako ni nini. No, what they will do is no, you have already identified the problem. That's why generator analysis. Those are now to know what is this that will help to solve the problem. Then design and then that. When we go to programming, the same thing that will happen. You have been given a problem by an organization. So when ukiitwa unapewa hapa, I think kuna kitu. Some of them even give the problem. Will tell you hii system yetu sijui ni nini. But they are not very clear. So you have to go and ask exactly what is this you are saying in nini. Then they tell you, I think when you enter some data like this, unaona hii, this is not the output I wanted. So you know the problem is wrong output. Then what do? Then you look at how do you get the correct output. Maybe the requirements, the needs for the system were not done properly. Then you go and interrogate, and then you get the proper solution, and then this is how to do it. You design, and we'll talk about that design, and then you develop the solution, and then install and use. That is what we do. So that is basically an overview. Now, of course, like I've mentioned, sometimes the users are not very clear on what they need as a solution. So it is you as the developer whom will go and clarify this one, the first one on how to identify, how to identify the problem. So sometimes they're not very clear. Or the way they put it, you know, there's a difference between what we call a need and a requirement. There is a whole difference between a need and a requirement. A need, you know, you take your girlfriend for lunch, and then she tells you, mimi niko na njaa, naweza kula kuku mzima. Pena kiperebere yako unaenda kumletea kuku mzima. Then what do you expect? These girls you have here, they want to show that they are what you tao. Because pia tumetoka Gishagi ndio hivi even worse. So you unamletea kuku mzima, then the fellow anatoa tu thigh, anasema yeye hataki cholesterol, hataki kunona, anatoa gozi, anachukua kabugu kamoja, anaumba, anaanza kusema this kuku is very sweet, alafu anaachana nayo. Sasa kuku imeachwa mzima, na sababu unataka kujifanya ni gentleman wa town, unajua si mzee kama kandili. Kama ni kandili unaambia waiter, if I take my wife out, anakula kuku hivyo, na mwambia waiter kuja funga hii kuku. Najua for the next 2-3 days hakuna mtu ataniitisha kuku ama nyama, watakula hiyo. Now for you utaacha hiyo kuku, ujifanye kiberebere tunajua. That is a need. You cannot meet a need, you know. And these are the languages we use. You go out, niko na njaa sana, naweza kula ng'ombe mzima. Now if we give you ng'ombe mzima utamaliza. So that's a need. But a requirement is like now when you have this need, your need here sometimes not clear. That is why we need to convert a need to requirement. In the identifying of the problem, you have a need. We need to convert them to something that can be solved. That's what we call a requirement. And that is why we have this analyzing this one. This is why we go here. And in this analysis, there are several methods that we do to try to understand the problem. One is like what I said, you go to see to an organization and they really don't know what they want the system to do. So what are you going to do? You're going to conduct an interview. Yes, one method you do is to conduct an interview. So in this interview, basically, that means you are having one-on-one session with the respondent to try to clarify. They try to clarify what do they want. So just like that doctor will ask you, ulianza kuumwa lini, inaumia pande gani, unatapika, do you have nausea? Already ukisema yes, anajua haka ndio kalikuwa kanangojea lecturers wasikuje class, kanaanza kurukaruka na huko na kurukaruka na hako. If anyone misbehaved, don't mind, you have learned your lesson now, and I hope none of these men went to misbehave. Now, so they're interviewing you. The next one is what you call I will call it literature review. Literature review. So literature review is whereby, yes, you have heard this is the problem. You go read, just go read. You read generally out there, read about that problem and the solutions, that problem and the possible solutions. You read to understand it better. Yes, that is why these fellows you call lawyers, they are called learned friends, because you will see them citing and cross-citing. That is what they will do. Let me pick a call from. Hi, good afternoon. So what we are simply saying is that when you're doing the literature review, you read generally, and I was talking about these fellows we call lawyers. Why are they called learned friends? You'll find that they will always cite. They will have read other cases similar. So ukona case hapa, then what do? You read about other cases before and how they were determined. So that is, you are reading literature. You are reading. So even in system development, you read about other systems similar to yours were developed and what are, maybe even the programming language was used. Maybe, for example, they might look, was it web-based? Is it better to have a web-based version for that problem? And this helps in literature review. For example, as you proceed with your course and your academics, you realize, for example, the other day I was marking some work from another university. And I recommended that fellow should not pass, because the person was talking about a system that you will analyze people. But then the fellow was talking about the use of traditional methods. For example, if it is students to system to guide students on how to select courses, you start telling me they do just the normal programming. Then I was asking, Kwani, these days we have the machine learning methods that are there, the AI, this is where people are. The system can learn on itself, or you can make the system train on some data, and then they can be using that to even train the person or learn this person, the personality of this person, and recommend for example, the degree that they should take or the career choice to take. So I reduced the marks that I was to give this person because of that. And when went to the oral defense, I was very clear that this is not the best solution for the problem you are having. If this fellow had gone, because even when I was giving the feedback, I gave sample system in that area that are using the AI and machine learning. If the fellow had gone that way, you see, the fellow would have come with a better solution than what he came up with. This is the purpose of literature review. Literature review. There's something also that is called document review. Document review, for example, right now, I'm sure after you came back, you are doing what is called unit registration. And some of you, I see you coming with some forms there at Tukujazie, unit for a semester. That is an example of a document review. This is different from literature review. Literature review is taking journals, written materials about that area. You read to understand. But document review, for example, is the document that are filled. For example, if I wanted to come up with a student online registration, then I'll look at that form because to be showing what details do you fill in that form. In that form, what is filled, who signs, how is it signed, how does it look like? So that is document review. I want to make this one clear. Literature review, you are reading general literature about the area. You are taking books, you are taking journals, you are taking publications in that area. If it is the wakilis, if we digress from the system development, the wakilis will go read about other cases, similar cases to yours. Then use that one to help them prepare for this one, the one that is current. For you, then you will go read about the literature to understand, for example, this software. How was it? What programming language was used? Blah, 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 all that. Then from that, you can now start planning. Then you have document review. These are the documents that are generated by the current system. What are documents does it generate? You look at them. Some of them will even help you. If it is, for example, you are upgrading an existing system, then it will help you to upgrade that system. That is document review. And an example of document review is those documents that you carry around telling the lecturers, Mwalimu signed for me the unit registration. I'm sure that you have come across it one time or another. Maybe you even did it this time. That is document review. I will go to D, and D, you talk about prototyping. Prototyping. A prototype is a rapidly developed working version of a system. It's a rapidly developed working version of a system. You come up with a model of that system. That is what you call prototype. Assume I'm developing student registration system. I can go to, I don't know how many have used, how many are well versed in the use, and I'm seeing students still asking, they join the class. I really don't know why they would like to join the class when you're almost ending. I don't know where they were. When we will have a physical class, just know that I kick students out of class, or I prevent them from coming to class when they come late. So I hope that then we will try to be coming on time. It is not good. It's not courteous. Even me, I was here early. I allowed you in, I think, around either 5 minutes to 1. So let us ensure that we come on time. Hii maneno ya kuja kuanza kupiga hapa kelele ati na kuingia, then we don't want that. Now, I can see there is an answer here, 7. What question did I ask, Ashawa? I was affected by these fellows who are asking to get in. What was I going to? There's something I wanted, the example. Yeah, I was talking about the people. How many in this class know how to use Microsoft Access, not Excel, Access? How many have used Microsoft Excel? Access. By a show of hand. 1, 5, 6. Very good. Quite a number. I think very well. I'm seeing they are stabilizing around 11. Okay. How many know how to use Wizard to generate either table, to generate report, to generate data entry forms? How many know how to use a Wizard to generate a report in Access? Is up your hand? Even there are more. They are now 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Hey, okay. So what are we simply saying? Those who have used the Wizard, you remember that you could very simply develop, even come up with a table. In Microsoft Access, for example, assume you're doing student registration, you can do a table and another one, and then you use the Wizard to develop the data entry form. You just tell it next, 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 even picking the fields that you want. Just pick the field, because Access already has some predefined fields. If a student, first name, last name, date of birth, blah, blah. It has a lot of details because it's from US, if zip code, all those things. Then you pick the fields that you want, and then you say next, next, next. In a few minutes, you have developed the form. Next, you go to queries. You again go to query, I'm going to connect this and this, next, you are done. Next, it is data entry form. Next is the report. And then you just need to key in data, and you have a accountability system. Now, you can now imagine you want to develop a student registration system. You can, provided you know, we are assuming already from this course, you already have done, we are already doing some programming. That is what you're doing and thinking. You will already have done, Mohoro, can you mute your mic? Mohoro, mute. I have blocked that developer of this call so that it doesn't even hear the class. I'm telling him to unmute. Now, what you're simply saying is that using this wizard, you have been able to do all this. And then what happened? It means then if I was coming into the registration system, there are some courses you have already done before. For example, you're already doing this course. You have already done programming in first year. You already do object-oriented programming. You'll do a unit called database management systems, and therefore how to create a database. You'll have some skills. You'll have some skills, and therefore when somebody gives you a problem, I want you to do a student registration system. You can already tell that there is a table that is called student. There is a table called courses. There is a registration process where you combine data from these two, blah, blah, blah. So now here, because these people are asking for that system, but you really don't concretize exactly how do they want to put in that record, because you don't know whether the feeds you're thinking is what they capture. They might be having, for example, they want to capture students from different groups, for example. And when you talk about groups, they could be many. For example, groups could be the degree course you're doing. Like now today, I have two groups. I have maths, computer science, and computer science, the same class. Then you have another group, maybe evening student and day students. That is another group. Are you in day or are you in the evening? 3, there could be another one, regular or digital. You see, so the system need to record that this Kiari Gogi is actually a regular student who is taking, for example, computer science, and who is actually in the regular and not the digital group. That is what you're talking about. So a day student. So this is the things we're talking. So these are details that you might not know as the programmer because we have just been consulted. So it is you now to go, and when you understand that, how do you capture that? You can first of all develop a system, because the purpose of this tool we are saying is to collect data. You can randomly develop a system very fast. Then you take to the users. When the users look at it, now they can give feedback. They tell you, no, remove this table or remove this. That is what they're calling a prototype. So you can see with the rapid develop. Using Microsoft Access, using Wizard, you can very fast develop the system. The final method, which you don't use in system development, is what you call a questionnaire. This one, we don't use it to develop a software system, and I will explain this in our next class. Why is questionnaire not a correct tool when you're developing a system? I'll be able to explain that clearly so that you understand. Good. I think this unit, we were having 1 hour, but I think we have hit our 1 hour. So I'm assuming that you have another hour later, or you have another class. Another class, we continue? Class reps, do we continue? Class reps are not talking, you can unmute.
You can continue.
We can continue. We class rep we can write there those who want us to continue. Okay. Those who want us to continue, no, we can't continue. Not that we can't continue. No, we don't continue. Now when they say we can't, now sasa unajua hiyo ni makosa Timothy, wacha hiyo story. Wengine no. Okay, those 4 we continue. Thumbs up. Those not to continue, thumbs down. I can see very many thumbs down. Thumbs down seem to be more than the thumbs up. Sawa. Then thank you. Thank you for coming. Then we'll be meeting tomorrow. What time tomorrow? Class rep? Yes?
It should be Friday from 7.
Oh, Friday, yes. Tomorrow is another group. Good.